Hello. Can I break Path of Exile 2? I know this is a bit of an odd question. Some people will be thinking, well, yeah, duh, it's an ARPG. Some will be saying, no, the game doesn't allow for that level of customization. And still others will say, who are you? Don't worry about that last one. I decided to give it a shot. Someone who has only played Path of Exile 1 recently and was admittedly quite decent at it. If I could break the first game, surely I can break this one too. Let us begin. So obviously, one of the big things is, typically with games like this, I typically play as the warrior first and foremost. I saw this guy, I want to play. I want to play as the mercenary. So hello, welcome in to Path of Exile 2. And immediately we are introduced to one of the game's major changes. In this case, to its controls. WASD movement. Back before 2024, we moved around by clicking on the screen multiple times, sometimes spamming so fast we developed several problems in our wrists and hands. But that is no longer the case, because now we can move and shoot independently of one another. Luckily for those old souls who still prefer a click movement, it is still an option. But as you will probably see, it is an option I would not recommend using, since the game is heavily built around the modern movement style, which now includes a dodge roll. I could say something about it being like Dark Souls, but Monster Hunter and Zelda had these systems before that series. But yeah, this is the titular dodge roll for the game, so here's my question. Is there a way for me to aim? There is not. See, that is one thing that I was hoping they would do, is have it so that there was like an option where you could hold down a button and it would let you aim kind of towards the distance. I feel like that would be a really neat little quality of life thing that could be added into the game. You know, another thing that they could absolutely add is a sprint button, where essentially you can't really perform actions, but you can sprint. That is actually something that was in Diablo 2, if I remember right. I seem to remember that was a thing, where you could run faster. There's a first level up, so let's take a look at the skill tree. So, the mercenary, oh, okay, that's way streamlined compared to that. You don't have the scion in the middle anymore. You instead have everyone just around this central point, it looks like. So, we can either get armor and evasion or projectile damage. I'm going to be going with damage because that's what I usually do. Ooh! Hang on a second. Ooh, wait a second. Ooh! Oh, yes, I can agree with that. That is satisfying. Okay. Oh, that's stagger. You can actually see the stagger now. That's good. I like that the stun threshold is actually shown to you now, because that also makes it so that stun is actually something that people will probably end up using more in this game, because I know that stun is really good in the first game. Don't get me wrong. Okay, I need to avoid that. Yeah, stun was already really good, so just making it more obvious is way nicer. But I'm liking this. I'm liking this so far. Oh, this is what I was hearing about. You can actually see all of the stuff that you can do here with all the different gems and everything. It can be used to fire rapidly and to break enemy armor. That's what I want. Well,
armor-piercing rounds can break enemy armor.
That's pretty cool that they actually show that now. Like, they have a little video that can be done, but I feel like that's gonna get annoying. But I think I wanna, okay, oh, it's like, okay, it's like the shotgun blast that I already have, but with, cold. Okay, that's funny to me. Sorry, I'm stimming. That's all. And then my permafrost bolts have a DPS or a damage of 1. Wow. Let me explain something I wouldn't know about until much later in time. How damage works in this game. Yes, it works very similarly, in fact, almost identically to the first game. But because of that, the wording of your skills is extremely important. All ammo types the mercenary has access to use the exact wording converts physical damage to elemental damage. Basically, if I had 100 physical damage on my crossbow and I fire a shot that converts 80% of that damage to ice, it means that I am dealing 20 physical damage and 80 ice damage, which was apparently a thing in the first game, primarily on weapon-based skills like strike skills. But it's not like anybody paid attention to it because things like elemental resistances really weren't that big a deal in that game. Spells, on the other hand, typically use the term deals damage, meaning it is entirely calculated as the stated damage type. But as we will come to see, this wording, and my not paying attention to it, would bite me in the ass. It does have armor, so I should actually use my armor-penetrating rounds. Because you can see up in the top right, like the video was saying, or in the bottom right, you can actually see what resistances it has and does not have. So that's actually really nice. Oh, that was a lot of damage on me. Okay. There's so many little bugs. Look at them.
Piercing shot!
Piercing shot. What a loser. Okay. Got it. All right. Let's portal out of here. Portal out like it's Diablo 3. You can actually just compare what the difference it's going to make is. Oh my god, that's amazing. Wow, that is not much of an increase. That's 2% for a level up. Whoa! What? Oh. Okay, I think my last fight with her was just a bit of bad luck, you know? That happens, even in the first game. Okay, especially in the first game. Scatter shot. That does work exactly how I thought it would. Oh, that is nice. Wow, that was... Fuck-ass werewolf comes running up, you just shoot it once and it dies instantly. That's nice. The areas do feel quite a lot bigger as well. Maybe it's because of the fact that there's no movement skills and no sprint or anything. Hi, I'm here to inform you that the maps are indeed bigger. This problem only gets worse as time goes on. Fucking love this so far. I love the... Oh, this is gonna be a boss.
Oh, well, that's ominous.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Oh, that's what I'm saying, mate.
I'll wait here. The old
Find the red veil. Warframe. Those are not the best, except for the fact that this has cold resist, but wait, 1,100 gold? What the fuck? What the fuck kind of inflation bullshit is going on here? I mean, I heard the witch talking about swelling earlier. That was easy. Wait, what? Huh?
Azamites never give up a fight.
A unique?
No less.
I thought the items in this game were supposed to be rare. Well, fuck, I mean, I'll take that, and it's also oh, that's a level 3. I'll take that too. What else have we got? Rune Skull Camp. I'll take that. Yeah, that is one thing though that I have noticed is that the run back is quite bad actually. Let's see, anything? Can I afford anything is the better question. I can afford stuff. Hold on. This is new. I've never had this before. And I'm finally starting to get some stuff with sockets in it. I forgot I was going to look at this. Mist Whisperer adds cold damage. Gain mana per enemy killed. Increased freeze buildup. And increased chill duration. Attacks chain 2 additional times. I'm equipping that. Straight jorking it right now. On the subject of the passive skill tree, there's a few differences between this one and the one in Path of Exile 1 that I wanted to go over. For starters, the lack of mastery nodes. Sure, this isn't such a big deal right now, but personally, I use these as a way to quickly discern what a cluster of nodes do, letting me, at a glance, understand what a cluster is without having to look at every single travel node. In Path of Exile 2, Totem. But since each class is positioned a lot closer, it does mean that you can much more easily access other parts of the skill tree much easier. And sometimes having more options isn't a good thing. There is just no movement speed change. Oh, wait, no, hang on. There are 2% increased movement speed. Yo. We gotta get that 2% movement speed. Oh, hey, here we go. I can finally refund 1 point. From this point on, there wasn't too much different throughout the rest of Act 1. Going to new areas, slowly exploring them, killing enemies slowly, and also doing a bunch of side quests for various bonuses, such as extra weapon skill tree points, a mechanic that is so poorly explained and yet seems so vital to getting good at the game. I'm shocked it never gets explained once. Basically, from what I can gather, you get weapon set skill points, which are specific to your first or second weapon set, meaning you can have 2 different builds in one character, which sounds awesome. I don't actually know how to use this system though, so I didn't. We beat Act 1 and get to travel off to the obligatory ARPG Desert Act. Truly a revolutionary concept, I know. And this is where I need to bring up a fact that I've been dreading talking about for a long, long time. I actually got bored during this act. Now don't get me wrong, the boss fights with the Flame Lady were cool and the environments were even cooler, but the problem was twofold, as I found while playing the game. This is a reminder that the game is in early access, and it is going to be very, very jank. I basically paid to be a QA tester, so by God, I will be a QA tester, damn it. The first major issue is with enemy health values. They are way too high. This relates to the overall speed of the game being a lot slower. Movement skills are no more. There's no sprint button, and movement speed as a modifier is extremely rare for boots. This means that you always go at a set pace throughout the game, and that pace is slow, which extends to enemy encounters. On normal enemies, it isn't much of an issue considering the game's slower pace. This problem is only made worse by the existence of blue and yellow enemy variants that raise the health pool of various enemies to such an incredible degree. I have a clip of me fighting a single enemy in Act 1 for about 15 minutes. That's how bad it gets. And unfortunately, the solution I had at first was to just play multiplayer. But multiplayer difficulty scaling is a thing. And apparently, it's so bad that some people on the Steam forums have estimated that enemies have upwards of 100% more health per player. I'll get into an example as to why high health values are a problem later. But for now, let's talk about the game's focus on enemy damage reductions. In the first game, damage reduction was negligible at the highest levels, unless a boss had the resistant to X damage type, and even then, that was resistant, not immune. So you could still beat the shit out of enemies if your DPS number was in the, I don't know, 100,000s. I mean, that's just a lowball estimate, I'm not gonna lie. In this game, they made the enemy damage resistances much more of a focus than they ever did in the first game. Enemies will have elemental markers ranging from red to gold, with gold negating the majority of a damage given. I fucked that up big time. With gold negating the majority of given damage type, and red being weak to it. Point is, the damage reduction is no longer something to be aware of, but more something to actively play around. Especially as the mercenary class, since the way you're supposed to play him right now is purely crossbow-based, while swapping ammo to take advantage of various enemy weaknesses. I say this because at one point I tried to respec into grenades. Don't. You want to take advantage of enemy weaknesses, and, if at all possible, open new ones. Such as, if an armored enemy approaches you, break that armor and take advantage of it. But it does make me feel like there's only one good build for my class, which isn't helped by the limiting skill gem system that bases its options off the weapon you are using and only allows for one support gem of a given type to be equipped, period. You cannot have duplicate support gems in different abilities. Now, I am glad they are putting more of a focus on the weapons, but I feel like my build options are seriously lacking, and that in terms of longevity, the game will not last long because nobody will have a reason to return to the game at this point. Once the honeymoon phase of this game has worn off, people will not want to return because there won't be a good reason to return. These two issues I didn't realize were issues at the time and caused me to stop playing the game out of sheer boredom. If enemies were taking too long to kill, I had no reason to engage with them. And if running took too long, which it did, then I had no reason to engage with it. So I had no reason to engage with the whole video game. Now, I would return a few days later with a newfound sense of purpose, respec my build for a second time into crossbows, and start testing the theories I presented beforehand about enemy resistances, and it worked. Sort of. Enemies went from borderline unkillable to at least mortal. It took time to kill them, yes, but the point being, it was doable. And so, I kept going with this new build, excited for the next step of my journey, the path to Ascendancy. Ascendancy is that thing in Path of Exile that takes your class from a starting point on the skill tree and turns it into a specialized playstyle. But to even get to that point, you need to complete a challenge first. The challenge in the first game was simple. Navigate a labyrinth full of traps and enemies, and face big boy Izuro 3 times, and you get rewarded with a combination of loot, improved gems, and Ascendancy skills. This challenge could be rather tough at times, mainly due to how tedious it was, so Grinding Gear Games decided it was time to give the players more variety in these challenges. In Act 2, your goal is to navigate a series of rooms with a specific resource that gets lowered as you take damage, known as honor. If you die or run out of honor, you get sent back to the start. This mechanic ought to sound familiar to some of you, because this is the League mechanic of Sanctum, with all of its problems included. Because honor is lowered based on damage you take, it means that ranged classes will have a notably easy time getting through this challenge. But on the other hand, melee classes need to play exceedingly safe, and even then, they will take some damage. Now, I had an easy time of it considering I was playing as the Mercenary, and I'm sure other classes like the Ranger, Witch, and Sorceress will also have an easy time. But the Warrior and Monk will definitely be struggling, especially when combined with the increased health values of enemies in the game. So, what's your reward for this astronomical challenge? Currently, a choice from one of 2 different subclasses that drastically changes the way you play. The Mercenary gets the Witch Hunter, a class based around dealing with crowds, getting improved damage when enemies have full or low health, and in general, being a menace on the battlefield. As well, he gets the Gemling Legionnaire, a subclass that puts more of your focus on skill and support gems, giving them improved quality, increased levels, and the ability to equip 2 of the same support gem on different abilities. Sorry if I got your hopes up that you could equip 2 of the same support gem on one ability. That, sadly, is not the case. While the Witch Hunter is the obvious good option of the 2, thanks to its major focus on DPS, I wanted to have more fun, because that's why I play these games. So, I went with the Gemling Legionnaire. Don't. No, seriously, if you're going to be playing as a mercenary, do not pick the Gemusi. It's not worth it. Your first major Ascendancy notable is a choice between 3 additional skill slots, which you never run low on because you have so many to begin with. Attribute requirements are fulfilled by your highest attribute, which is actually a really good skill because you can now use elemental skills or any weapon skill as long as you're proficient in that weapon, and 10% quality to equipped gems, which is a fantastic option if gem quality was stuff like more damage. Remember when I mentioned the game was in early access? Some Ascendancies are even worse than this, such as the Titan, a class focused on slam skills, who can also get 20 more inventory slots. My recommendation to you is this. If you want to break the game, play as either the Monk or the Sorceress, the 2 current most meta classes in the game, for a reason I might add. The Monk has the Acolyte of Chayula, giving you breach-based powers that grant a stacking damage buff, life leech, mana leech, and straight up additional chaos damage. The least resisted damage type in the game by its own admission. And the Sorceress gets the Chronomancer, a spellcaster type that gets 3 unique abilities. One that freezes nearby enemies in time, one where you can rewind time to a prior point for yourself, restoring health, energy shields, and mana, and the ability to reset all of your cooldowns. And that is on top of additional benefits like additional cooldown time, additional cast speed. It's pretty freaking good. But unfortunately, I didn't know this at the time and was stuck with a guy I barely understood how to play. He may also be stupid. And I say barely understood how to play because building a gemling is possible, but I would again not recommend it right now, especially because we reached the Act 2 boss after this point. The Act 2 boss is the exact moment all my major problems with the game's gameplay pacing came to a sad, sad climax. This is a boss fight that, for me, with the best gear I could get, taking advantage of enemy weaknesses and being able to dodge all of his attacks as he used them on me with ease, took 8 minutes. Trust me, I'm a Xenoblade fan. Long boss battles are something I typically enjoy. But when the gameplay is just circling around the bad guy, hitting dodge occasionally, and then continuing to circle around the guy some more, it's tedious. But what happens when you die? You have to start the battle all over again. I died to this guy 5 times before I was able to properly beat him. And each time, I made it to the final phase before the pressure got to me and I made some fuck up because that's how I work, okay? The boss was cool. The patterns were understandable, but he has too much health. The pacing is off. And because of that, it was the single worst part of the game to me. Yeah, even worse than finding out grenades were more akin to party poppers than actual explosive ordnance. But at least I made it to Act 3, right? So for the most part, Act 3 was more of the same for me, but notably a lot easier and a lot better than Act 2. I'd say Act 2 is the hurdle 90% of new players will not make it past for good reason. It's really tough. There's also some cool boss fights with the Chimera, some really beautiful water, very impressive architecture I absolutely love because it's Aztec inspired, but I regret to inform you, ultimatum. Now, I don't know about you, but I heavily dislike this leak mechanic. Basically, you get 10 waves of increasing difficulty and increasing reward. Each wave of enemies, you take a different negative effect, ranging from 50% less armor and evasion to lightning striking the ground randomly. Oh, and these negative effects stack between waves. So who decided that should be required for your second Ascendancy? I'm sorry, this is the one time I will be genuinely upset because this is a terrible option. Again, Sanctum is doable if you're a ranged class, but Ultimatum is just pain. And the point of these mechanics in the first game was that they were optional. For the most part, if you didn't like a mechanic, you could just ignore it or even spec into an Atlas skill point that removes it from existing in the first place. But here, you're doing Ultimatum, and you're gonna do it if you want 2 more Ascendancy points. I really do not like Ultimatum, but if there was one thing I could advise with my YouTuber-sized ego, it's simply this. And some people are not gonna want to hear it. Make the challenge easier. I know, make a hard game easier. What am I, some kind of pussy who would be okay with a Dark Souls easy mode? I mean, Dark Souls is easy because you can't really lose, but yes. My point is this. The challenge is straight up impossible for some classes right now. And if it isn't impossible, it's at least unreasonably hard. Meaning for something as required as Ascendancy, maybe make the challenge you have to do for Sanctum and Ultimatum an easier version of itself? Maybe having you only do 5 rooms in Sanctum before you win, and 5 levels of Ultimatum before you win. Maybe have it so that the 10 floor option is after you've beaten it once before, and just want to do it again. I'm not complaining about having to start the challenge of Ascendancy over when you die here, because that was still a thing in the first game. It made it a challenge that you actually felt was challenging. But imagine you had to fight Izaro 10 times instead of 3. It's not fun, it's just tedious. So with having beaten Act 3, the final act currently in the game, what are my final thoughts? I've said a few things, but know this. The game is good, but it's really rough right now, and needs to be smoothened drastically. I refuse to believe this game has been worked on actively for about 5 years. A year? Maybe 2? Yeah, I get that. But for how dangerously jagged it can feel at times, it really is going to need more time to simmer. I want this game to be better, to have the longevity of Path of Exile 1, a game released in 2013 that is still going strong to this day. But with the problems in build variety, the issues certain classes will encounter during mandatory progression requirements, and the overall speed of the game being so slow causing players to actively dread replaying certain parts of the game out of sheer boredom than fear of dying, it needs worked on. As of writing this, it's patch 0.1.1c, and 0.2 has yet to be announced. But my current wishlist is this. Make enemies more easily killable. Time to kill in a game like this shouldn't be so long. I play the game to click on monsters and they die. But in this game, I just click on the monsters. Second, please make more viable build options. Some overhauls to the passive skill tree, ascendancies, as well as the support gem system are going to be needed. The game focuses on side grades for your various skill gems and the supports you put on them. But because of that, support gems aren't exciting to get a hold of because I know I'll be gaining one thing but losing out on another, gaining more projectiles but less damage. And due to the limit placed on how many support gems you can have on different abilities, it means I have to actively sacrifice one skill's applicability for a different skill to be more useful, which is very unfun. And third, more content. I'd really like more game, please. Oh, and as for the question I started this video off with, can I break Path of Exile 2? Well, no, I cannot. I don't have the patience. But can you? I got a better idea. Instead of playing this, go download Path of Exile 1 and play that game instead. Sure, we're in late-stage Settlers League, but you get tons of build variety, a vast endgame, and the game will keep you hooked because of how much dopamine you get from it. I'm being serious. Go play it now, and also send help. I may have a crippling addiction and my family's ready to abandon me on the street.